Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
As we've discussed this week, the post office, frankly, is a mess. Yesterday, Democrats asked that the Board of Governors remove Louis DeJoy. Nancy Pelosi sat down with him, and he said point blank to her that he has no reason, no desire. He's not going to reverse any of the damage that he's already done to the post office. And today, more breaking news. Katie Porter and Congresspeople Katie Porter and Raja Krishnamoorthi have announced that they've come into possession of some documentation that shows that Louis DeJoy didn't get his job the way he was supposed to, that it's possible one of those Board of Governors members, a guy by the name of John Barger, may have circumvented the search process to put another big Republican donor as head of the post office. Congressman Krishnamoorthi joins us now to talk about all of this. Hey, Raja, what the heck is going on?
Well, thanks so much, Joan, for having me. The USPS is a mess. I think that it's fair to say that, what Donald Trump has tried to do with other departments and agencies of the federal government, namely to try to politicize them, he's doing the same with the USPS. And we all know exactly why he wanted to slow down mail delivery, and that's to monkey with mail-in voting. He said it as plain as day. He gets points for candor. However, in the process, it's not bad enough that he is interfering with our right to vote, but at the same time, he's doing great damage to small businesses who are waiting for their parcels and payments, seniors who are waiting for Social Security checks, as well as veterans who rely almost entirely on the USPS for their medications through the VA. And so we launched this investigation about how this guy, Louis DeJoy, actually got selected. Apparently, an outside contracting firm had been hired to find the next Postmaster General. And instead of going through that process, the White House, it appears, basically pushed DeJoy through this governor on the Board of Governors. And, all of a sudden, he's now the Postmaster General. And he's one of the few, if any, Postmaster Generals in the history of the USPS who didn't actually come up through the ranks. You have many of them who were letter carriers. Many of them were clerks. They came up through the ranks. They know the Postal Service. They know the standards of delivery. They're trying to professionalize the place and make it run even better. And here we have a gentleman whose claim to fame is basically donating $1.2 million to Donald Trump's campaign fund.
Unbelievable. And I was so shocked that that DeJoy said flat out to Nancy Pelosi, I'm not gonna do what I've been doing anymore, but I'm also not gonna undo what I've done. And I'm sure Brad Schneider's already asked Kwame Raoul to open a criminal investigation into Louis DeJoy, because it's a crime to interfere with the mail.
Right. I think that DeJoy, it's obviously a good thing that he's suspending the changes, but if he's already made all the changes and done the damage and he's not willing to reverse it, it doesn't really matter what he says. And so that is the fundamental line of questioning, I think, that a lot of people are going to be pursuing. What did you do with the mail sorting machines? He decommissioned hundreds of them. What did you do with all those blue mailboxes? Are you going to put them back in place? How are we going to make sure that mail-in voting actually happens the way it should, and that mail-in ballots are treated as first-class mail, which is how they've always been treated, and in an effort to make sure they arrive on time at local elections authorities. So those are among other questions will be certainly asked at the hearings.
Well, public pressure has accomplished a lot so far in at least stopping the expansion of the damage. Do you think if this stays front and center in the public eye and there continues to be a lot of outrage over this, do you think that would be what it would take to get them to restore some of these sorting machines? NBC News, by the way, last night had this big exclusive report. They found this warehouse, I think it was in Iowa, where it was a warehouse full of sorting machines. It's like they were just piling up there. Do you think that public pressure can accomplish more than it has already?
I think so. We received 1,612 calls, letters, and emails on this subject. I know that other offices are receiving the same. This weekend, I'm going there on Saturday to vote on this legislation, which is really important for funding the USPS. And I'm told that dozens of Republicans have already signed on as co-sponsors, which leads me to believe, and I've never seen that happen on any legislation that the White House is not favoring, which leads me to believe that they're feeling the heat. So to all your listeners out there, turn up the heat. This is very important. And as I said with the veteran that I mentioned before, actually, I don't know if I mentioned it before. I've been saying this all day, but we had a veteran calling in. He called my office, Joan. He just recently had an organ transplant, and he basically called and said, I'm really worried about my post-operative medicines that are necessary for, making sure my body doesn't reject the new organ. And so this is life and death. We're not talking about small stakes here.
It absolutely is. And in addition to veterans, there's a lot of senior citizens who get like their diabetes medicine in the mail. Yeah. I mean, this is such a stupid organization to toy with. And I think it, if nothing else, illustrates to our listeners how incredibly self-centered and short-sighted this president is. I think when he told DeJoy, because I'm convinced DeJoy didn't come up with this, on his own. He didn't just wake up one morning and go, I think I'll take apart the post office. Clearly, he's been meeting with Donald Trump, and he is doing what Trump wants him to do. But, nobody sat down and said, gee, I wonder what the ramifications of this will be, aside from, screwing up mail-in ballots. Oh, gosh, did anybody say a lot of people get their medicine through the mail? A lot of people are really dependent on the mail. No, nobody said that. There's nobody, I don't think, in Trump's circle who dares to offer any kind of critique for any kind of wild idea he comes up with. It's, and I think it's really interesting because in one area, the Department of Homeland Security, I'm sure you've seen the interviews that Miles Taylor's been giving, the former chief of staff for the DHS. And he's talked about, not only, you think what happened was horrible. Let me tell you what didn't happen that, and behind the scenes. And I thought it was interesting that he actually said that Kirstjen Nielsen said to Donald Trump when he wanted to separate families, she said to him, this is unenforceable and probably illegal. And he told her to do it anyway. And, she's the one who's going to walk around for the rest of her life with that legacy. And then once the courts stopped it, Miles Taylor said Donald Trump wanted to do it again, and he wanted to do it bigger, and he wanted to make it a public thing that you try to get across the border, you're going to lose your kids. So the fact that he would go after the post office in a self-serving way is certainly in character with the man. On another, go ahead.
I think so. Well, I think that's exactly right. I think that the difference here is that he's also dealing with an institution with 80% plus popularity, the most, the most popular institution of government there is. And you and I and everybody rely on the U.S. mail. And we know when there are problems. And when there are problems, people speak up. And they speak up in big numbers. And that's exactly what's happening now. And it's got to continue until things stop getting monkeyed with.
In the minute we have left, can you give me a real quick reaction to Barack Obama's speech last night?
Well, what can I say? He crushed it, and I think that's vintage Obama, right? I think that between his and Michelle Obama's speech, I think that you get a real strong sense of why I think that people tuning in are likely to vote for Biden. I think that the Democrats have done a great job putting on this convention, and I think that tonight is going to be even as exciting as last night and the previous nights, if not more.
Well, thank you for all that you do. You and Katie Porter are a formidable pair, and I wish you the best in making this stuff happen.
Hey, thank you so much, Joan. Thanks for paying attention, and keep up the pressure on your congressmen and women and senators, and let's get things right at the USPS.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much. Rajna Krishnamoorthi, Congressman from Illinois, joining with Democratic Congresswoman from California, Katie Porter, to hold the USPS feet to the fire when it looks like one of the Board of Governors, John Barger, sort of circumvented the usual process to get Louis DeJoy planted as head of the post office. By the way, if you'd like to let Mr. Barger know how you feel about that, here's his email. barger.jm, because remember, his name is John M. Barger, barger.jm@gmail.com, barger.jm@gmail.com. Let him know how you feel.